Okay, having asked Omar some questions about his choices and his behaviour in Chapter 1, let's move on to Chapter 2. In it to win it. Minds and muscles. A little bit more alliteration for you there, gang. 23. No, 22. 15? There were two teams. Yellow and red. Omar was on the yellow team. A boy called Joe was trying to do the second mind obstacle in the race. He had to count backwards from 50 in sevens. A girl called Mia was doing the same for the reds, and she was slightly ahead. The first mind obstacle had been saying the alphabet backwards. Omar was very glad that he had signed up for a muscles obstacle. So far the two teams were neck and neck. Joe and Mia got to the end of their counts almost at the same time and handed the baton over to the next runners, Sophie and Jacob. The racetrack twisted and curved through the woods so everyone else could dash straight to the next obstacle and get there before the runners to cheer them on. Next was a muscles obstacle. It was a big sandy pit, and the runners had to get across by zip wire. The two runners appeared around the bend in the track. Jacob was slightly ahead for the reds. Sophie was trying hard, but she just wasn't overtaking him. Come on, slow coach. I wonder, Year 3s, why did Mr. Doofer pause before he said slow coach there? The words came out of Omar without him thinking. He ran alongside her to shout more. He wanted to get that little extra effort out of her. Sophie just needed to move her feet that little bit faster. Sophie reached the sandpit just ahead of Jacob. She tucked the baton into her hoodie and leapt onto the zip wire. Omar grinned as she shot off. Excellent. His shouting had worked. They might beat the record. Omar didn't see exactly what happened next, but he almost screamed in frustration when he realised that Sophie had fallen off and the Reds had already handed their baton over. Fatima, who was next to run for the Yellows, jumped down into the pit to help Sophie. The leader shouted a warning. She has to get to the side first. Sophie looked a bit dazed as she picked herself up. Omar felt anger boiling up inside him. By now the Reds had to be something like 30 seconds ahead. He couldn't help the words pouring out as Sophie finally handed the baton to Fatima. Can't you even stay on a stupid zip wire? Omar hurried through the woods to the next obstacle. He was going to be the next runner. How do you think, Year 3, that Sophie might be feeling after this couple of pages? How would she be feeling? It was another muscles obstacle, a pair of rolling logs. The runners had to get across them without falling off before they could hand over the baton. Fatima fell off several times. Fortunately, Jacob was just as bad. Omar felt anger starting to boil inside him again. How could she not see what to do? She didn't have to get all the way across. She just had to get far enough to hand him the baton. Just run! You don't need to stay on it all the way. Just get near enough to me. Eventually she got it. Fatima held the baton out over her, and Omar could grab it, even though she promptly fell off again. He didn't care. He was already running. Just wondering on these 2 pages here, Year 3s, what has the illustrator, the drawer, done to make this page look a little bit more interesting? The two boys pelted through the trees. The red boy was really fast and just slightly ahead when they got to the next obstacle. They had to crawl through a pair of plastic pipes before handing over. Omar flung himself forward into his pipe head first. He wriggled his way along like a caterpillar, jacking his whole body and banging himself against the side. He was the first out, and he thrust the baton to his teammate. It was Chloe, the girl who had dropped the bottle. "Run! Now run! Run!" Chloe turned and tripped. The baton went flying into the hands of Sophie, who had caught up. "Get up!" Omar shouted at Chloe. He was immediately ashamed of himself because he could see that she had hurt herself. But the desire to win was like a raging fire inside him. He couldn't control it. To Omar, winning mattered more than anything. The red team's runner, a boy called Charlie, had already disappeared down the track. Chloe was still clutching her leg, but then Sophie was running with the baton instead, and she was really fast. Omar got to the finish just in time to see Sophie pull the prize out of a tub full of maggots. It was like suddenly being able to breathe. They'd won! They'd won! Omar was really pleased. But had they beaten the record? Year 3s, there were 3 reasons here for me using such a big voice when it came to get up. What are they, do you think? And finally on this chapter, what do you predict? What do you think's going to happen now that Omar